The cargo bay had become a battlefield of wills. Zhao stood at the center, surrounded by his soldiers, facing a growing crowd of his own people. The certainty that had driven him for 20 years was crumbling with every passing second. Kira did not move. She kept her eyes on Zhao, watching the war playing out behind his 4 eyes. Anger fought against exhaustion. Pride fought against doubt. The need for revenge fought against something deeper, something that had been buried for 2 decades. "Commander," one of the younger guards said. His voice was shaking. "What do we do?" Zhao did not answer. The crowd of Veltari civilians continued to grow. They were merchants and workers and families who had been hiding since the attack began. Tarek Moore had spread word that the extremists were losing control, and the silent majority had finally found the courage to speak. "Enough blood has been spilled," an elderly Veltari woman called out. "Let the humans go. This is not who we are," another voice shouted. Zhao turned to face his people. For a moment, he looked like a man drowning. Everything he had built, everything he had planned, was falling apart around him. "You do not understand," he said. His voice cracked. "They killed my family. They sold the weapons that destroyed everything I loved. Someone has to answer for that." "Then make them answer," Kira said. "But not like this. Not with hostages and executions. Take your evidence to the Galactic Assembly. Tell your story. Let the galaxy judge humanity by facts, not by blood. And what good will that do? The Assembly is slow. They talk and debate while nothing changes. Maybe, but at least you will have tried. At least you will have given humanity a chance to be better. Is that not worth more than a broadcast full of death?" Zhao closed his eyes. The weight of 20 years pressed down on him like a physical force. Daniel watched from the sidelines, his hand resting on his empty weapon. He had seen men like Zhao before. Men who had carried rage for so long that it had become part of them. Men who did not know how to put down the burden they had been carrying. But he had also seen men find their way back from that edge. It did not happen often, but it happened. "Commander," Daniel said. Everyone turned to look at him. "I know what it feels like to blame yourself for the death of people you were supposed to protect. I know the anger that comes with it, the need to make someone pay." Zhao opened his eyes. "You know nothing about me. I know that anger is a fire. It keeps you warm for a while, but eventually it burns you up from the inside. I carried it for years after I lost people under my command. I thought if I could just find someone to blame, someone to punish, it would make things better." He paused. The cargo bay was completely silent. "It did not help," Daniel continued. "Nothing helped until I stopped trying to balance the scales and started trying to protect the people who were still alive. You cannot bring back your family. Nothing you do today will change that. But you can choose what happens next. You can choose to be something other than the man who kills innocents." Zhao stared at him for a long moment. Then he looked at Kira, then at Tarek, wounded but standing, then at the crowd of his own people, waiting to see what he would do. "Lower your weapons," he said to his soldiers. The guards hesitated. One of them, a veteran with scars on his face, shook his head. "Commander, we cannot just give up. Everything we have worked for," I said. "Lower your weapons." Zhao's voice was tired, but it carried the authority of a man who had made his decision. "This is over." One by one, the guards obeyed. Weapons clattered to the floor. The hostages began to cry with relief. Kira walked forward and extended her hand to Zhao. "Thank you." He did not take it. "Do not thank me. I did not do this for you. I did it because I am tired. 20 years of hatred, and all I have to show for it is an empty cargo bay and the faces of frightened strangers. That is more than you had an hour ago. That is a start." Zhao looked at the hostages being helped to their feet by Veltari civilians. Tarek Moore was among them, accepting water from a young Velthury woman who had tears streaming down her face. "Your assembly will want to arrest me," Jal said. "Yes, they will. I will not fight them. But I want one thing in return." "What?" "I want my testimony heard. I want the galaxy to know about the arms dealers who destroyed my home. I want accountability, even if it takes years." Kira nodded. "I will make sure it happens. You have my word." An hour later, the rescue ship Fairfield docked at Meridian Hub. Lieutenant Yara Cole led her team through the corridors, weapons ready, expecting to find a massacre. Instead, she found human and Velthury, civilians working together to tend to the wounded and restore order. Kira met her at the main junction. "Lieutenant, your timing is excellent, as always." Cole stared at the scene around her. "What happened here?" "Our last report said there were armed extremists holding hostages." "There were. But it turns out that most conflicts can be resolved if you are willing to listen." Cole shook her head in disbelief. "You talked them down?" "I asked the right question at the right time. And I had help." Kira gestured toward Daniel, who was sitting on a crate having his arm bandaged by a Velthury medic. Cole approached him. "You are the civilian contractor who sent the first message. Carter, right?" Daniel nodded. "That is me. You did good work here. The brass is going to want to talk to you. I hope they do not expect me to sign up for anything. I am retired." Cole smiled. "I will let them know." Later that night, as the station began to return to normal, Kira found Daniel standing by a viewport, looking out at the stars. His arm was in a sling, and he looked exhausted, but there was something peaceful in his expression. "You should rest," she said. "So should you." She stood beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. "Thank you," Kira said finally, "for everything. You did not have to come back. You did not have to risk your life for strangers." Daniel shrugged. "It is what I do, is it? Or is it who you are?" He thought about that for a moment. "Maybe both." Kira smiled. "When Zhao held you at gunpoint and I handed you back your empty weapon, I saw something change in him. He expected you to be angry or afraid. Instead, you just holstered it and waited, like a man who had nothing to prove. I did not have anything to prove. I spent all my rounds trying to help people. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was the point." Daniel looked at her. "What do you mean?" Zhao believed humans were selfish and violent. He believed we would sacrifice anything to save ourselves. When I showed him your empty weapon, when I asked him why you had not saved a single round for yourself, he could not answer. Because the answer was obvious. You gave everything to protect strangers. You held nothing back. She turned to face the stars. That is what humanity is at its best. Not our weapons or our technology or our colonies. Our willingness to sacrifice for others. Our refusal to give up even when the math says we should. That is what I wanted him to see." Daniel was quiet for a long time. "I never thought about it that way," he said. "Most people do not. But I think that is why we keep surprising the galaxy. They look at us and see a young species with too much ambition and not enough patience. They do not see what is underneath. The part of us that runs toward danger instead of away from it. The part that empties our weapons protecting strangers instead of saving rounds for ourselves." She put her hand on his shoulder. "You saved more lives today with an empty gun than most soldiers do with full ones. Remember that." Daniel nodded slowly. "I will try." Across the galaxy, news of what had happened at Meridian Hub spread quickly. The story changed with each telling, growing larger and stranger, but the core remained the same. A single human woman, unarmed and alone, had ended a hostage crisis by asking one question. And a single human man had proven her point by running out of ammunition protecting people he had never met, on a Velthury colony world A young child asked her parent about the story. What did the human woman ask? Her parent looked down at her with thoughtful eyes. She asked why someone who could have killed chose to protect instead. And no one could give her an answer. The child thought about this for a moment. I think I know the answer. What is it? Because sometimes the hardest thing is not fighting. Sometimes the hardest thing is stopping. And the humans knew that. Her parents smiled. Maybe you are right. Maybe that is exactly what they knew. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, Daniel Carter and Kira Voss traveled toward their next destinations, carrying with them the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a gun, but a question asked at the right moment by someone brave enough to ask it. Kira stood in the center of the cargo bay with 8 weapons pointed at her. The hostages watched from the floor, their eyes filled with a fragile hope they were afraid to believe in. Tarek Moore lifted his head and met her gaze. He gave her a small nod, so slight that no one else would have noticed. Zia Chao circled her like a predator examining prey. His 4 eyes studied every detail of her face, looking for fear, looking for weakness. He found only calm. You are brave, he said. Or foolish? I have not decided which. I came to ask you a question, Kira said. You came to waste my time, to delay the inevitable. Maybe, but you agreed to 10 minutes. That means some part of you wants to hear what I have to say. Zhao stopped circling. Speak then, but choose your words carefully. Kira took a breath. She had spent years learning how to read people, how to find the cracks in their armor and slip through. Zhao was angry, but his anger was a shield. Beneath it was something older, something broken. You lost your family, she said. 20 years ago. Human weapons killed them. Zhao's face hardened. You know nothing of my family. I know that you loved them. I know that their deaths changed you. I know that you have spent 2 decades planning this moment, imagining how it would feel to make humans pay for what they took from you. And now, that moment has arrived. Has it? Kira asked. Look around you, Commander. Look at your men. Look at the hostages. Is this what you imagined? Is this the justice you dreamed of? Zhao glanced at his soldiers. Some of them were young, barely out of training. Others were older veterans who had followed him for years. All of them were watching the exchange with uncertain expressions. Justice is not always beautiful, Zhao said. Sometimes it is ugly. Sometimes it requires sacrifice. Whose sacrifice? Theirs? Kira pointed at the hostages. They did not sell weapons to the Kreth. They did not destroy your colonies. They are traders and workers and travelers who came here to do business. Most of them have never even heard of the Kreth faction. They are human. That is enough, is it? If a Velthari criminal commits a murder, should all Velthari be punished? Zhao's jaw tightened. That is not the same. It is exactly the same. You are holding innocent people responsible for crimes they did not commit. You are becoming the very thing you hate. The cargo bay was silent. Even the guards had stopped moving, frozen by the tension in the air. Zhao stepped closer to Kira. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried through the entire room. You speak of innocence as if it means something. But I learned long ago that innocence is a lie. Everyone is guilty of something. Everyone has blood on their hands, even if they cannot see it. Then, what about him? Kira pointed up at the catwalk. Daniel tensed. His cover was blown, but Kira kept talking. That man up there has been following me since the attack. He is a security contractor, a civilian. He has no stake in this fight, no reason to risk his life. But he has spent the last 2 hours trying to save strangers because that is who he is. Zhao looked up at Daniel. The guards raised their weapons. Come down, Zhao ordered. Slowly, or I will have my men shoot you where you stand. Daniel considered his options. He could take out 2, maybe 3 guards before they killed him. But that would leave Kira and the hostages in worse danger than before. He climbed down from the catwalk and walked to stand. Beside Kira, Zhao studied him with cold curiosity. "A hero, how touching." "I am not a hero," Daniel said. "I am just a man who does not like watching innocent people die." Zhao reached out and took Daniel's weapon from his holster. He checked the magazine and smiled. 12 rounds. You came to fight 8 trained soldiers with 12 rounds. It was enough to get this far. Zhao handed the weapon to one of his guards. Foolish. Brave, perhaps, but foolish. Kira stepped forward. "Commander, I want to show you something." She took Daniel's weapon from the guard who held it. The soldiers tensed, but Zhao raised a hand to stop them. Kira ejected the magazine and checked it carefully. Then she pulled back the slide and showed the empty chamber to everyone in the room. 12 rounds, she said. That is all he had when he came here. And do you know how he got a 12? He started with 17. He used 5 to rescue hostages. 5 rounds to save lives he had no obligation to save. She held the empty weapon up for Zhao to see. If humans were the monsters you believe us to be, why did he not save any ammunition for himself? Why did he spend every round protecting strangers? Why is his weapon empty? Zhao stared at the gun. His expression flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been doubt. Kira pressed on. You want the galaxy to see humans as killers. But this man ran out of ammunition defending people he had never met. He held nothing back. He gave everything. Is that the behavior of a monster? She placed the empty weapon in Daniel's hand, grip first. Here, she said. Take it back. It is empty now, but it is still yours. Daniel took the weapon and holstered it. He did not understand what Kira was doing, but he trusted her. Kira turned back to Zhao. You asked me earlier if my words could change anything. I do not know, but I know that actions speak louder than words. And the action of one man, emptying his weapon to protect the innocent, says more about humanity than any speech you could ever give. The cargo bay was completely still. One of the younger guards lowered his weapon slightly. Another glanced at his companions with uncertainty. Tarek Moore struggled to his feet. She speaks the truth, he said. His voice was weak but clear. I have known humans for 15 years. They are not perfect. No species is. But they are not monsters. And what we are doing here today is wrong. More guards shifted uncomfortably. The certainty that had held them together was cracking. Zhao saw it happening. He saw his soldiers beginning to doubt. He saw the mission he had planned for 20 years slipping away. Enough, he shouted. This changes nothing. The broadcast will proceed. The hostages will die. And the galaxy will know that Valkyrie will not be ignored. But his voice lacked the conviction it had held before. Kira looked him in the eyes. It does not have to end this way. You have grievances. Real ones. Let me take them to the Galactic Assembly. Let me tell your story. Not with threats and hostages, but with evidence and testimony. Give humanity a chance to make things right. Zhao laughed, but it was a bitter, hollow sound. You expect me to believe that? After everything your kind has done? I expect you to consider it. Because the alternative is to become exactly what you accuse us of being. A killer of innocence. A monster hiding behind a cause. Zhao raised his hand to strike her, and then he stopped. His hand hung in the air, trembling with rage and grief, and something that might have been exhaustion. 20 years of hatred had brought him to this moment, and now he stood on the edge of a choice that would define everything he was. Behind him, more Valkyrie voices began to rise. Civilians who had been hiding on the station, drawn by the commotion, were gathering at the entrance to the cargo bay. Tarek had sent word through the communication device he had hidden. The silent majority was silent no more. "Stand down, Jal," a voice called from the crowd. "This is not justice. This is murder." Jal looked at the growing crowd of his own people, standing against him. He looked at Kira, still meeting his eyes without fear. He looked at Daniel, holding an empty weapon, willing to die for strangers. And for the first time in 20 years, Commander Jal did not know what to do. The corridor exploded with noise and light. Energy bolts slammed into the walls around them as Daniel pushed Kira and the 3 freed hostages toward cover. He fired twice over his shoulder without looking, forcing the guards to duck, buying them precious seconds. "Move!" he shouted. "Down the corridor. Do not stop." Kira grabbed the arm of a young woman who had frozen in fear. The woman was a trader named Holly Price, barely 20 years old, her face white with terror. Kira pulled her forward, speaking calm words that she herself did not believe. "You are going to be fine. Just keep moving." One foot in front of the other. They ran. Behind them, Daniel walked backward, weapon raised, watching for pursuit. 2 guards came around the corner, and he dropped them both with clean shots. Center mass. They fell and did not get up. That was 4 rounds gone. 13 left. They reached a junction, and Daniel pointed left. "Storage area. We can hide there until I figure out our next move." The storage area was dark and filled with crates of supplies waiting to be shipped. Kira helped the hostages settle behind a row of containers while Daniel secured the door. He checked his weapon again, and she saw the tension in his jaw. "How many rounds do you have?" she asked. He looked at her for a moment, surprised by the question. 30. Is that enough?" "It depends on how many of them come looking for us." Kira sat down on a crate and took a breath. The 3 hostages they had rescued were in shock, but they were alive. Holly Price had stopped crying and was staring at the floor with empty eyes. The other 2 were older men, traders who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Thank you," Kira said to Daniel, "for coming back." He shrugged. "It is what I do. You could have escaped, found a way off the station. So could you? But you stayed with the other hostages." Kira did not have an answer for that. Daniel moved to a small window but looked out at the stars and checked his stolen communication device. There was chatter on the Veltri channels, rapid and angry. Zhao was furious about the escape. He was ordering his men to search the entire station. "They will find us eventually," Daniel said. "We need to move." "Where?" "Back to the cargo bay." Kira stared at him. "Back? Are you serious?" "There are still 8 hostages in there. And Tarek, the wounded Veltri. I will not leave them. You have 13 rounds and no backup. How do you plan to rescue them?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her. "I do not have a plan yet, but I know that those people are waiting for someone to help them. They are scared and alone and probably think they are going to die. I cannot walk away from that." Kira studied him. She had met soldiers before, men and women who followed orders and did their duty. Daniel was different. There was something deeper driving him, a need to protect that went beyond training or obligation. "What happened to you?" she asked. He shook his head. "That is not important right now." "It might be. If we are going to work together, I need to understand who you are." Daniel looked away. When he spoke, his voice was flat, like he was reading from a report. "I was a Marine. 12 years. I did 3 combat tours in the outer colonies. Good service record, commendations, all of it. Then I got assigned to a refugee transport mission. We were supposed to protect a convoy of ships carrying civilians away from a war zone." He paused. His hands tightened on his weapon. "Pirates hit us halfway to safety. 3 ships. They disabled our escort and started boarding the transports. My team held them off as long as we could, but there were too many. When it was over, 200 people were dead. Men, women, children, and I was lying in a medical bay with a hole in my chest, wondering why I survived and they did not. Kira did not speak. She let the silence sit between them. I left the military after that, Daniel said. Took contract work. Simple jobs. Guard duty. Cargo security. Nothing that would put anyone at risk except me. But this morning, when I saw those soldiers take you, I knew I could not stand by again. I could not watch more innocent people die while I did nothing. Kira stood up and walked to his side. Then we do this together. But we do it smart. Charging in with 13 rounds is not going to save anyone. What do you suggest? Kira thought for a moment. Zhao is angry, but he is also proud. He wants to deliver a message to the galaxy. He wants to be seen as a hero to his people. That means he needs this to go according to his plan. If we can disrupt that plan, make him look weak or foolish, his own people might turn against him. And how do we do that? We give him someone to talk to. Someone who will challenge him in front of his men and make them question what they are doing. Daniel understood. You want to go back as a negotiator. I want to go back as a mirror. I want to show Zhao who he really is and let his followers see it too. It was a risky plan. If it failed, Kira would be captured again, and this time Zhao might kill her on the spot. But Daniel could see the determination in her eyes. She believed she could do this. All right, he said. But I go with you, and I find a position where I can provide cover if things go wrong. Agreed. They left the 3 rescued hostages in the storage area with instructions to stay hidden until help arrived. Holly Price grabbed Kira's hand before she left. Please, she whispered. Save the others. Kira squeezed her hand. I will do everything I can. They moved through the station like shadows, avoiding patrols, slipping through maintenance corridors that Daniel had mapped in his head. The closer they got to Cargo Bay 7, the more guards they saw. Zhao had doubled security after the escape. Daniel found a service ladder that led to a catwalk above the cargo bay. From there, he could see the remaining hostages huddled in the center of the room. Tarek Moore was among them, still alive, still watching everything with careful eyes. Zhao stood near a large screen that showed a countdown. In 2 hours, he would broadcast his message to the galaxy. In 2 hours, he would start killing hostages one by one until humanity admitted its crimes. Kira took a deep breath and stepped out of the shadows. Commander Zhao, she called out. Her voice echoed through the cargo bay. Every guard turned to look at her. Every weapon came up. Zhao stared at her with open surprise. Then he smiled. The diplomat returns. I was wondering when you would come back. Kira walked forward slowly, her hands raised. I came to talk. Just talk. No weapons. No tricks. Give me 10 minutes, and then you can do whatever you want. Zhao considered this. His men looked uncertain, waiting for orders. 10 minutes, he said finally. But if you try anything, I will kill you myself. Kira nodded and walked into the center of the cargo bay. Above her, Daniel settled into position, weapon ready, counting the guards and calculating his shots. 12 rounds. 8 guards. The math was not in his favor, but he had faced worse odds before. He watched Kira face Zhao alone and waited for his chance to make every shot count. Daniel moved through the maintenance tunnels like a man who had done this before. The metal walls were cold and the air smelled of oil and rust. He kept his weapon ready and his footsteps soft. Every few minutes, he stopped to listen. The station was full of sounds now. Alarms in the distance. Boots on metal floors. The hum of machines that did not care about the violence around them. He found a junction where 3 tunnels met and checked his ammunition. He had started the day with 2 full magazines. Now he was down to 1.5. 17 rounds. Not enough for a prolonged fight, but enough to make a difference if he was careful. He thought about the woman in the cargo bay, the diplomat. She had seen him in the corridor and said nothing. That took courage. Most people would have panicked or given him away by accident. She had kept her head. He decided she was worth saving. The tunnels led him to a communication hub on the lower level of the station. The room was small and filled with screens that showed different parts of Meridian Hub. Most of the screens were dark or showed static, but a few still worked. Daniel studied them and learned what he could. The attackers had sealed the main docking bays. No ships could leave without their permission. Emergency signals were being jammed. The station's small security force had been killed or captured in the first minutes of the assault. Outside help would not know. Anything was wrong until it was too late. Daniel found a working terminal and tried to send a message. The screen flickered and a voice came through. It was scratchy and broken by interference, but he could understand it. This is Lieutenant Yaricole of the rescue ship Fairfield. We are 3 hours out from Meridian Hub. We have received reports of an attack. Can anyone hear me? Daniel leaned close to the microphone. This is Daniel Carter. I am a civilian contractor trapped on the station. Hostiles have taken at least 12 humans captive in Cargo Bay 7. They are Velthari extremists. Their leader is a commander named Jal. There was a pause. Then Cole's voice returned. Copy that, Carter. We are moving as fast as we can. Can you get to the hostages? I can try, but I am alone and low on ammunition. Understood. Do what you can. Help is coming. The connection died. Daniel stared at the dark screen for a moment, then turned away. 3 hours. A lot could happen in 3 hours. He made his way back toward Cargo Bay 7, moving through corridors that grew more dangerous with every step. Twice he had to hide as Velthari patrols passed by. Once he came around a corner and found himself face to face with a single guard, who had stopped to adjust his weapon. Daniel did not hesitate. He grabbed the guard by the throat, slammed him against the wall, and put him to sleep with a chokehold. The guard slumped to the floor without making a sound. Daniel took his communication device and kept moving. In the cargo bay, Kira was watching Jal. The commander paced back and forth in front of his prisoners, speaking into a device that recorded his words. He was preparing a message for the Galactic Assembly, a speech about human crimes and Velthari justice. Kira listened carefully, looking for anything she could use. 20 years ago, Jal said, human merchants sold weapons to the Kreth faction. Those weapons were used to destroy 3 Velthari colonies. 40,000 of my people died. Children, elders, families who had done nothing wrong. And what did humanity do? They sent a letter of regret. They promised investigations that never happened. They moved on to their next profit. He stopped and looked at the hostages. His 4 eyes were cold with old pain. Today, the galaxy will see what humans truly are. Not builders, not explorers, killers. And they will learn that Velthari blood has a price. Kira spoke before she could stop herself. What price would satisfy you? Jal turned to her. You speak out of turn, diplomat. I speak because that is my job. You have grievances. Real ones. I do not deny that humans have done terrible things. But killing us will not bring back your family. It will only prove that violence is the only language anyone speaks. Jal walked toward her slowly. The other hostages looked away, afraid. Kira did not move. You think your words can change anything? Jal asked. You think I have not heard 1,000 speeches from humans who promised peace while their merchants sold death? I think you are angry, Kira said. And I think anger is a fire that burns the one who carries it as much as the one it is aimed at. You want the galaxy to see humans as monsters. But what will they see when they look at you? Zhao raised his hand as if to strike her. Then he stopped. Something in her words had reached him, even if he would not admit it. He turned away and went back to his recording. On the far side of the cargo bay, Tarek Moore had been placed with the human hostages. His wound had stopped bleeding, but he was weak and pale. Kira moved closer to him, pretending to adjust her position. "Are you all right?" She whispered. Tarek looked at her with tired eyes. "I will live. For now. Why did you try to warn us?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because I have traded with humans for 15 years. I have eaten at their tables. I have laughed at their jokes. They are not the monsters Zhao believes them to be. Some are good. Some are bad. Like any people." Kira nodded. "There are others who think like you. Many. Most Velthri want peace. But fear keeps them silent. Zhao and his followers are loud. The rest of us are afraid." Kira filed this away. If she could find a way to reach those silent voices, she might be able to turn this situation around. Above them, Daniel had found a ventilation shaft that let him look down into the cargo bay. He could see Kira talking to the wounded Velthri. He could see Zhao near the main door. He counted 8 guards, all armed, all alert. He could not take them alone. But he could even the odds. He moved back through the tunnels until he found a power junction. The controls were simple enough. He studied them for a moment, then began to work. 10 minutes later, the lights in Cargo Bay 7 went out. Kira heard the guards shouting in confusion. She felt someone grab her arm in the darkness, and she tensed, ready to fight. "Stay down," a voice whispered near her ear. It was the man from the corridor. "When the lights come back, move to the left wall. There's a door. I will open it." Then he was gone. The lights flickered back on. The guards were still scattered, trying to figure out what had happened. Kira caught the eye of 2 other hostages and nodded toward the left wall. They understood that when Zhao turned to shout orders at his men, Kira moved. She reached the door just as it slid open. Daniel was on the other side, weapon raised, checking the corridor. "Come on," he said. "We do not have much time." Kira pulled 3 hostages through the door before the guards noticed. Then the shooting started. The Meridian Hub was busy that morning. Ships came and went through its docking bays like fish swimming through a reef. Traders shouted prices across the market floors. Diplomats walked in small groups with their guards close behind. The station sat in neutral space, far from any single government's control. And that made it the perfect place for species who did not trust each other to do business. Daniel Carter stood near a cargo loader and watched the crowd. He was a security contractor, hired to protect a shipment of medical supplies bound for a human colony 3 systems away. The job was simple. Stay alert. Keep the cargo safe. Do not start trouble. He had done work like this for 8 years, ever since he left the military. And he had learned that the quiet jobs were often the ones that went wrong. He was 34 years old with short, brown hair and a face that rarely showed what he was thinking. His sidearm sat in a holster on his hip. He had not fired it in 11 months, and he hoped to keep that record going. Across the station, in a conference room with tall windows looking out at the stars, Kira Voss sat at a long table across from 3 Velthri officials. She was a diplomatic attaché for the human government, sent here to negotiate water rights on a contested moon. She was 28 years old, calm in her movements, and trained to read the small signs that told her when someone was lying or afraid or ready to make a deal. The Velthri were tall beings with pale, blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces. Their voices were soft, almost musical, but Kira had learned not to let that fool her. They were proud and careful, and they believed that humans were a young species that had risen too fast. The lead negotiator was a female named Seath. She spoke slowly, choosing each word like she was placing stones on a board. "The moon belongs to no one," she said, "but the water beneath its surface has been mapped by Velthari scientists for 200 years. Your claim is based on nothing but hunger." Kira kept her hands flat on the table. "Our claim is based on the same thing yours is: need. We are not asking to own the moon. We are asking to share what it offers. Surely that is a conversation worth having." Seath tilted her head. "Perhaps. But conversations require trust, and trust requires time." Kira nodded. This was progress. Slow progress, but real. She did not know that 6 floors below her, a group of armed Velthari were cutting through a maintenance hatch. Commander Zhao moved through the dark corridor with 12 soldiers behind him. He was older than most of his troops, with scars across his face from a war that had ended before many of them were born. They hated humans. They hated their smiles and their soft words and the way they spread across the galaxy, like a disease that could not be stopped. 20 years ago, human weapons dealers had sold missiles to a faction that destroyed his colony. His mate had died. His children had died. The humans had called it a tragedy and done nothing. Zhao had waited 2 decades for a chance to make them answer for it. Today, he would take human diplomats hostage and show the galaxy what humans truly were: killers, liars, animals, dressed in suits. The attack began without warning. Explosions shook the market floor. Alarms screamed through the corridors. People ran in every direction, not knowing where safety was. Daniel grabbed a young trader by the arm and pushed her toward an emergency shelter. Then he drew his weapon and moved toward the sound of gunfire. He did not know what was happening, but he knew that chaos was a hunter's best friend. Someone had planned this. In the conference room, Kira felt the floor shake beneath her feet. She stood up just as the door burst open. 2 Velthari soldiers rushed in, their weapons raised. Seath screamed something in her own language, but the soldiers ignored her. They pointed at Kira and shouted for her to get on the ground. Kira did not panic. She had trained for moments like this. She dropped slowly to her knees, keeping her hands visible, watching the soldiers for any sign of what they wanted. One of them grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. "You are coming with us, human." Daniel reached the upper level just in time to see the soldiers dragging Kira through a side corridor. He followed, staying in the shadows, counting how many enemies he could see. 2 with Kira, 3 more at the end of the hall. He was alone and outgunned, but the woman they had taken was clearly important. He moved closer. Kira stumbled as the soldiers pushed her forward. She caught herself against the wall and looked back, trying to see if anyone else had survived. That was when she saw Daniel behind them, moving like a ghost, his weapon raised. One of the soldiers turned. He had heard something. Daniel froze. Kira understood in an instant. If she made a sound, the man following her would be killed. If she stayed silent, he might be able to help her. She looked away from Daniel and kept walking. The soldiers brought her to a cargo bay where other humans were already being held. She counted 11 hostages, most of them traders and their crews. They sat on the cold floor with their hands bound behind their backs. Guards walked among them, weapons ready. Zhao stood in the center of the room, watching the prisoners with cold satisfaction. When Kira was brought before him, he studied her uniform and smiled. "A diplomat," he said. "Good. You will help me send a message." Kira met his eyes. "What message?" "That humanity is not welcome in this galaxy. That your kind will answer for your crimes." Before Kira could respond, the cargo bay door behind Zhao opened. 2 more soldiers walked in, dragging a wounded Velthari civilian between them. The civilian was bleeding from a wound in his side. His name was Tarek Moore, and he was a merchant who had been caught in the crossfire. "We found this one hiding," one of the soldiers said. "He tried to warn the humans." Zhao looked at Tarek with disgust. A traitor to his own kind. Tarek coughed and raised his head. "I am no traitor. I am a merchant. I trade with humans because they pay fairly and keep their word. What does that make you, who murders innocents for politics?" Yale struck him across the face. Kira watched the exchange and understood something important. Not all Velthari supported what was happening here. That meant there might be cracks in Zhao's support. Cracks she could use outside the cargo bay. Daniel had found a maintenance shaft that let him look down at the room below. He counted the guards, marked their positions, and studied the layout. The hostages were in the center. Zhao was near the main door. There were too many enemies for him to fight alone, but he could not leave. Not with innocent people down there waiting to die. He settled into position and waited for his chance dot in the cargo bay. Kira sat down among the other hostages and began to plan. She did not know who the man in the shadows was, but she knew he was still out there. She had seen determination in his eyes. The kind that did not give up. She would find a way to help him help them. All she needed was time.